Hi, how's it going, everybody? Today, I thought I would make a DIY video because I just got a new kit, and let me show you what it is. Well, here it is. It's a clear shell for the Super Famicom. It's intended to replace the existing shell on the console. Looks pretty cool. Just make sure I don't break this. Yeah, seems like a pretty straightforward project. But yeah, I ordered this a while back and I really wasn't anticipating much, but when I got this, I'm actually quite surprised at how sturdy the plastic feels on the case. So I think it's going to be a fun project. And I think before I get started, I thought I would show everybody how my current Super Famicom looks like. And here it is. This is the Super Famicom that I had since I was in school back in the mid 90s. And as one could probably notice, there's been some staining that has occurred over time. But the bottom actually still looks quite nice. But it could use a facelift, so I'm actually looking forward to seeing how the clear shell will look on this after I'm done. One thing that is interesting about this kit is there's an optional Super Nintendo cover pack that one could purchase, and here it is. So it looks like this is a something that can be snapped on to the case. So the case already comes with a Super Famicom cartridge cover already snapped into the case, but I think the idea is this cover can be removed and I can replace it with this Super Nintendo cover pack, uh, which I am actually quite excited about because one of my biggest pet peeves about the Super Famicom is, well, other than the fact that I can't insert Super Nintendo games into a Super Famicom for obvious reasons. It just doesn't fit. In the reverse scenario where I want to play Super Famicom games on my Super Nintendo, it's actually quite easy to modify the console in order to do so. With the Super Nintendo, it's just a matter of removing a couple tabs that are inside of the cartridge bay. And in the Super Famicom, these tabs don't exist, but for the Super Nintendo, it's just a matter of removing the tabs. With the Super Famicom, though, there's a challenge because the shape of the cartridge cover it just can't accommodate for the Super Nintendo cartridge because it's just too small. Uh, so the way that I got around it was I used an adapter that I've had since I was in grade school. um, and I actually used to use this to play Super Famicom games on my Super Nintendo before I decided to cut the tabs. So this adapter also works in the reverse scenario where I want to play Super Nintendo games on the Super Famicom, and it functions as a pass-through adapter. So it works like so. So I just connected the Super Nintendo cartridge to the pass-through adapter, and by doing so, I can insert the Super Nintendo game into the Super Famicom. However, there is a major limitation with these pass-through adapters, and one of them is it doesn't work well. It actually doesn't work at all with any Super Nintendo games that use some form of expansion chip, like Star Fox, which uses the Super FX chip. And the reason for this is, if you notice, in the pass-through adapter, it, in the ends, the left and the right side, it's basically just plastic. And where for Star Fox, in the left and the right sides, there are some extra connectors that I believe it's used for the Super FX chip. So physically, I'm not able to connect a Super Nintendo cartridge with a expansion chip like the Super FX chip to this adapter. So yeah, I can't use this adapter to play these games on the Super Famicom. So I thought later on someone would bring out an adapter that would allow me to play these games on the Super Famicom, but yeah, not so much luck with this one either. This is one that came out, I believe it came out later. And what's interesting about this pass-through adapter is there are connectors, well, at least there is a placeholder for the connectors that would have been used for the expansion chips, but if you, just flipping it over on the bottom, there aren't actually any connectors. So this technically would not work, and it's very disappointing because I was really looking forward to this adapter being the adapter I could use to play Super FX games on the Super Famicom. So before I get started with replacing the case on the Super Famicom, I just want to make sure that it works. So I'm going to turn it on and see if it can still load games. So looks like I'm able to load the game. I think we're good. Okay, so the next question is, how am I going to open the Super Famicom? Do I have all the tools I need? Well, let's first take a look at the screws that were provided in the kit. So these look like Phillips screws. So yeah, I think I have a Phillips screwdriver, so I think it should be okay there. But one thing that's also interesting is the Super Famicom actually doesn't use normal screws. So as you can see here, these are not Phillips screws, and they're not slotted screws. So these are actually a special type of bits, or special type of screws rather. And they require a special kind of bit in order to remove them. And I happen to have these bits. And so allow me to introduce the 4.5 millimeter game bit, which I'm going to be using to remove the screws from the Super Famicom. And right next to these are 3.8 millimeter game bits, which I'm not going to be using to open a console, but these are used to open Super Nintendo cartridges. And as you can see from the paper that's on these plastic bags, I bought these quite a while back, and it's from a company called Redmond Cable, which is kind of like a go-to store for ordering equipment for electronics, as well as computers. And yeah, I think I should be okay. I'm also curious as to which version of the Super Famicom I have, and I happen to have a magazine from Japan called Game Labo, or Game Lab, and this particular issue is from the spring and summer of 2020, which has a special feature celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Super Famicom, which turned 30 years old in 2020. And what's interesting about this feature is there is a portion where it shows the innards of the Super Famicoms in the various hardware revisions that were made throughout the console's life cycle. So I think just taking a guess based on the console that I'm using, or the console that I have, I think I may have with either one of these, and the Japanese here says Chukigata, which means midterm model. So I either have the one from the Street Fighter 2 and the Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past era. Well, era meaning around the time when they were released in 1992. So I either have this model or this model that was released in that Nintendo started producing after 1994. I just removed 4 game bits, and now the console is open. So yeah, I guess I have some Phillips screws to remove. I was able to remove the circuit board from the case, and by taking a closer look, okay, looks like my Super Famicom was manufactured in 1993, and I have the SNES CPU GPM02 model. Okay, so this confirms that I have the midterm Super Famicom. Okay, and I just finished affixing the Super Famicom motherboard to the bottom shell, and I must say it was a very straightforward process. It just involved removing the screws, and these are Phillips screws, and transporting the motherboard to the new shell, and refastening the screws. So all I used was a Phillips screwdriver, and just to make it more convenient to when removing the screws, and repositioning the screws when refastening the screws to the case. I'm also using some tweezers, and these are tweezers that I used when putting together nano blocks, which are kind of like Lego-like blocks that are sold in Japan. So yeah. Now that I'm done with the bottom case, I'm going to work on the upper case. Before working on the upper case, I just want to make sure that my Super Famicom still powers on, and make sure that I didn't break the system when I transported it from the when I transported the motherboard from the original case to the clear case. So yeah. Let's see if it powers on. Okay, that's looking good. And the controller works. Okay, so the first step is to remove the face plates on the top shell of the Super Famicom. So you can remove the eject button as well as the other buttons, power reset, as well as the cartridge cover. And removing it was actually pretty simple. It was just a matter of just pushing on the tabs, the back of the faceplate, and applying a little bit of force. And yeah, it just snapped right off. It was a pretty straightforward process. And I just removed all the buttons. And it looks like the next step is to remove this, it looks like it's a lever that I think plays a role in the eject mechanism. Whoops, did I say eject mechanism? Because I think it's actually used for the power mechanism, which keeps the cartridge in place when the system is on. Okay, and I finished putting the buttons and the cartridge cover on the top shell, and snapped the SNES faceplate on the shell. So after that, I refastened the game bits on the bottom of the unit. So now, yeah, I'm just going to see how the bottom of the unit looks. I just want to give you just a look. It looks pretty cool. So yeah, I think for the last step of the bottom portion of the case is to put the expansion ports cover back on. So I'm just going to do that really quickly. And it fits snugly. What's also nice is they provided a replacement Super Famicom logo sticker. So because I happen to like this logo, I'm going to fix it onto the unit. I want to give a shout out to the sticker designer for including a small groove on the lower right hand side of the sticker. I thought it was completely round at first, but I was pleasantly surprised to find that groove. So it made it incredibly easy to affix the sticker to the case, and yeah, I definitely appreciate that because I am very challenged at affixing stickers to things. So thank you. And this is the final product. And as one could see, Star Fox for the Super Nintendo fits perfectly on this case. So with all things assembled, I just thought maybe I'll just turn it on and give this a spin. Considering I replaced the Super Famicom with a clear case, I thought it would only do it justice if I try it out with the Super Game Boy 2, which kind of has a translucent case, as you can probably see right here. So yeah, I'm gonna try to fire up the Super Game Boy 2 on my Super Famicom that I just replaced with the clear case. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, well, I think overall it was a very easy installation for the clear case, and yeah, it looks really cool. I like the fact that now I can play Super Famicom games and Super Nintendo games on the Super Famicom, while also being able to look at the innards. It's pretty cool.